Hi honey, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. Today, I'm sharing a build that I had done as a kind of warm-up to the newest Royalty and Legacy expansion pack. I just didn't realize I didn't have time to post it before the pack dropped. Oops. Anyway, I built a library with a slight modern twist in Windenburg, the world that comes with the Get Together expansion. I really don't know what happened in my brain right before Royalty and Legacy released, but I was absolutely convinced that I had an extra week when I definitely didn't. So I was technically working on this build right before the pack dropped and then immediately after, but I didn't want to start using the new pack in this build once I had access to it because I hadn't had access to it when I began the build. Speaking of packs, I somehow managed to make this into a limited pack build. It uses just one expansion, Get Together, one stuff pack, Crystal Creations, and 3 kits, Modern Retreat, Castle Estate, and Greenhouse Haven. This is basically a refurb build of the existing Quad Manor library lot, which is a 30 by 20 in the Old Platz neighborhood of Windenburg. I also need to be so honest with you right now. I just looked up what this neighborhood was actually called because I swear the only neighborhood I can remember in Windenburg is the Crumbling Isle. The other 2 neighborhoods are apparently called Lake Center and Winslar. I really like Windenburg and chose this world as the location for my dream home build, my first ever build in The Sims. So finding out the names of the other neighborhoods now is wild. This revelation is probably even more wild to those of you who have been playing The Sims for years, since Get Together came out in 2015, but I didn't start playing The Sims until 2022. I still consider myself a newer player sometimes too, because, well, generally, I'm newer to the franchise, but it's still been years for me at this point. Anyway, I specifically chose to build in Windenburg because my plan was to warm us up for the Royalty and Legacy expansion. So I thought using Get Together and the Castle Estate kit together would be a great way to do that. I don't usually build a lot of community style lots either, so I thought it might be fun to remake the Quad Manor library and give it a bit of a modern twist. Meanwhile, it's now been almost a month since Royalty and Legacy released, and I've only uploaded one video since my review of that pack. If you're newer to the channel, thanks for hanging out, by the way. I typically post new videos every Wednesday. The last video I posted was to introduce a new shell challenge I'm hosting for my boyfriend who designed it. I'll link that down below if you're interested. I actually turned his shell into a library, so I'm sorry for 2 library builds in a row. Again, my whole schedule was turned upside down by thinking I had an extra week before the pack released. And if you're a subscriber, hey friend, thanks for coming back, you'll notice I missed uploading a video last week. Let me catch you up. We basically started February preparing for and then covering Royalty and Legacy in early access. So I had been streaming over on Twitch almost every single day with the pack leading up to the release. Then the following week, the 3rd installment in another one of my favorite game series released, Styx, Blades of Greed. If you're unfamiliar, that series consists of now 3 stealth games where you play as a goblin named Styx, and you kind of have to sneak around the environment to survive. And you're also kind of a thief. That might not sound like the most exciting explanation of this series, but as someone who thoroughly enjoys stealth video games, I have been so looking forward to this new release. It's extra exciting knowing that the first 2 installments launched in 2014 and 2017, and now it's 2026. I only discovered them last year in 2025, so luckily I didn't need to wait as long for the 3rd in the series. Plus, I also had early access to play it. So I went from The Sims early access to Styx early access the following week. And then, tiny warning for mental health, at the very end of that week, I had a pretty bad panic attack, which prevented me from streaming that weekend. To top it all off, the following Monday, I ended up suffering from yet another kidney stone. Only this time, I felt like I couldn't really go to the emergency room or anything because here in New York, we had a blizzard. The timing could not have been better. This time was really bad too, because I spent the majority of Monday unable to keep anything down, including water, which is truly the one thing you absolutely need a lot of when you're suffering from kidney stones. So that was concerning. I was exhausted by Tuesday morning that I basically just spent the entire day alternating between sleeping and drinking water. So between that panic attack and the kidney stone, I was pretty wiped out. I apologize for not having a video up last week, but trust me, I needed the rest. I also ended up not even streaming at all that week, which was already going to be a short streaming week for me because I spent Thursday through Sunday at my boyfriend's parents' house. They'd moved a bit ago, and I still hadn't been to this new house, so it was exciting to see it and their new neighborhood and all of that. Plus, it was my boyfriend's dad's birthday, so we got to celebrate that with them. Overall, it kind of ended up being a much needed, relaxing mini vacation away from a pretty difficult week. If you're already subscribed here on YouTube, you may have noticed that I've started live streaming here as well. I think I might continue to do that, stream to multiple platforms at once instead of just on Twitch, as long as my PC can handle it. I'll likely make those VODs private though, because I recently launched a second channel where I'm going to be uploading all of my streaming VODs. I've been streaming for over 5 years now, and I've not been super diligent about saving my VODs. So I'm making it a priority this year to start saving those. Again, I'll link that channel in the description if you're interested. So essentially, I'm likely going to be focused on sim speed builds like this going forward for our weekly videos and uploading clips from streams as shorts. Just now, you might also see me live while playing The Sims and other games like Styx, Blades of Greed. Going back to The Sims though, I should remind you about that shell challenge I mentioned earlier. My boyfriend, Cinnabon Andy, wanted to make a shell challenge of his own for my community to participate in. And there's still time to try it out if you'd like. I made a video sort of going over what a shell challenge is, if you don't know, the rules for this specific one, and showed what I turned his shell into. But you can find the shell itself on the gallery in-game using the hashtag CinnabonAndyShell or my EA ID, Teknikolour. It's not due until March 14th, which is when I'll be touring all of the submissions. And there's literally 0 pack restrictions, so you don't have to worry about limiting yourself. I hope you try it out. I've already noticed that a few people have already submitted theirs, so I'm looking forward to later this month when I'll check them all out individually. By now, though, with this build, you'll see we're pretty close to finishing up the exterior. I kind of wanted to take cues from similar builds in this neighborhood and embrace the Tudor and castle sort of look. I did think this video would be going up right before the new royalty themed pack was launching. You could see the vision, right? I'd also kind of planned for this to have a kind of modern expansion or renovation of some sort. So that's why most of the structure has that older Windenburg look, while those glass panel windows in the front bring in more of that modern character that you'd find more of in the like center neighborhood. It's kind of a shame that that neighborhood is sort of designated as the community lot hub, because it'd be nice to do some residential builds there. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it'd feel a bit out of place with the overall look of the surrounding area. This neighborhood, Old Platts, however, I've done a few residential builds in, and even at least one other community lot. A while back, I'd renovated the South Square coffee lot, after my parents got me into another cozy British comedy mystery show, Shakespeare and Hathaway. I really adore the building that they use for the exterior shots of their detective agency's office, Lord Leicester Hospital. It has a kind of medieval courtyard sort of look to it. So I'd renovated South Square Coffee to look similar. I honestly don't remember if I made a speed build video for that, but if I did, I'll pop that into the description too. The build itself should be on my gallery though. If you've been watching my Legacy Challenge gameplay, which I typically do on Thursday mornings, at least here on the East Coast, you might recognize a familiar name. Luella Shakespeare, one of the title characters from the show, also was the inspiration for the name of my Generation 4 sim, Luella Wyndham. I don't know if Sim Luella is very similar to Luella Shakespeare, other than being blonde, but I just really liked her character when I started the show. I was a bit disappointed because I basically got into the show around Christmas 2022, and we didn't get another season until last year. Thankfully, I believe the 6th season is filming sometime this year, so it will be back soon. My sim, Luella, is actually my favorite sim that I've ever played with. In my Legacy, each generation is pretty much focused on one expansion pack, with a couple of exceptions. So for her generation, we were zoned in on cats and dogs and living in Brindleton Bay. This was Generation 4, mind you, and now we're on Generation 9. And technically, Luella is immortal, but that's a whole other story. It's pretty wild how quick time passes, isn't it? This gen, we're kind of focused on my wedding stories. Don't worry, we've just had the one wedding, but we are still living in Tartosa. My sim's a merman and interior designer, and his son Marco will be the star of our next generation, which will revolve around Strangerville. He, like Styx, will also be a thief. That's going to be different from my previous generation, so I'm both looking forward to it and nervous about it. Not sure how you play The Sims, but I'm still in my everybody's happy and living their perfect little lives era. I did have to play bad once before, though. My Generation 7 sim, Jet, was definitely a bad boy, kind of the outcast of the family. He was an actor, a celebrity, a cheater, and not a great dad. The thing is, I secretly kind of loved him and that entire era of my Legacy Challenge. Is that bad? I don't know how to be a bad boy, though. If you have any tips on how to, I don't know, be bad, please let me know in the comments, because I think we can definitely do better with our next gen, Marco. Oh, I've also started hosting a book club towards the end of last year, and last month's book was so good. However, the main character was also named Jet, or, well, nicknamed Jet, I suppose. Her real name was Margaret. Can I tell you how weird it was to go from playing with this super hot bad boy, Jet, for so long and then have to separate him from the protagonist, Jet, in this book? Very confusing for me. But I did end up loving the book and this character. If you're interested, the book was Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, which was a recommendation by one of our book club members. I would definitely recommend this one, and specifically the audiobook, which is how I listened to it. I was enthralled. I basically devoured this entire book. Moving on to the interior, I wanted there to be 2 floors to this library, but I did want a big 2-story space, which is ultimately where the staircase also ends up. I don't know what it is with me and my builds, but I somehow always seem to have difficulty figuring out where to place my staircases. I tried the stairs in so many different places, which luckily for you, I cut out of the video, because it was an embarrassing endeavor for me trying to figure out where to put them. Where they end up going is pretty much the most logical space, too. Like, why did I even struggle? You can also see that I went back and forth a bit on which style to lean towards for aspects of the build. So originally, the railings here were going to match that older style until I went with the more modern glass. As for the actual bookcases, of course, we're going with Crystal Creations. I remember when they announced this pack. I feel like everyone was so excited about this furniture. Personally, I love it. The desk, the chair, the bookcases, love it. Especially the ones with the little ladder attached with the books on some of the rungs. They nailed it with this one. Interestingly enough, I think I was also still on Generation 4 in my Legacy Challenge, and maybe transitioning into Gen 5 when this stuff pack came out. I honestly had so much fun with it. I think I'd been really using the crystals and things from Crystal Creations pretty much all the time up until Generation 8, and only because that sim hated his parents. That was Jet, the actor I mentioned before, and he moved to Solani and gave up all of his wealth, which, let me tell ya, as a builder, going from a mansion in Del Sol Valley to an actual tiny home in Sulani was quite a shock. I think I still have one single crystal that we barely use from Crystal Creations in that family. I wonder when I'll kind of bring back playing more with crystals though. I legitimately had a lot of fun playing with that stuff pack and I miss it. By the way, if you're in the market for any new Sims packs, I do have a creator code you can use when checking out on the EA app or thesims.com. If you're picking up packs for The Sims 4 specifically, you'll also receive a 5% discount on your purchase. Full disclosure, I do earn a commission from EA whenever my code is used, and I know a few of you have used my code recently to snag the new expansion, so I really appreciate it. Again, the code works as support for my channel on most EA titles, but the discount only applies for Sims 4 packs. But hey, in the wise words of Ursula the Sea Witch, I always was a girl with an eye for a bargain. Though, I do think it's my responsibility to let you know about what's going on in the Sims world if you weren't already aware. EA, or Electronic Arts, the publisher of The Sims, announced last year that they'd be going private in a $55 million sale later this year. Usually stuff like this would honestly go right over my head. Trust me, but I promise this sale is actually a pretty big deal. Here's the thing. The Sims has become kind of synonymous with inclusivity, releasing packs and free content that bring much needed representation to underrepresented communities. This sale is particularly disappointing to a lot of Simmers because the buyers in this sale seem to counter those core values of The Sims. We don't really know what could happen to The Sims if this sale goes through. Could things like queer representation, which is very important to me, be erased? Even this newest expansion was developed with the Pan-African Gaming Group and other community creators to bring in cultural representation, like new Afrocentric hairstyles and African-inspired recipes. The Sims has been doing things like this for quite a while now, and again, these new buyers could just tell the Sims team, stop. Look, it's not my position to tell you how to feel about this sale or to dictate politics to you, but aside from these real fears that Simmers have about the future of The Sims, this sale has also caught the attention of members of the United States Congress. If this sale officially goes through this summer, it could become the biggest leveraged buyout to date. Those members of Congress have already called upon the Federal Trade Commission to do a thorough review of this acquisition before it officially passes. So I urge you to do your own research and let The Sims, EA, and your local representatives know your position. As for me, I'm planning to keep playing The Sims and covering newer packs until we find out more information. It's my hope, like a lot of other Simmers, some of whom are actively boycotting new packs to send a message to EA, that this sale will not go through. Since I'm not participating in the boycott, I think it's only right that I at least let you know about all of this, so you can look into it more yourself and be fully informed. I'm also bringing all of this to your attention because you may have noticed that watermark in the corner of the video. As of November 2023, I have been in the Sims Creator Program and the EA Creator Network. I'm not paid to play The Sims or even cover packs, though I do sometimes receive packs for free, sometimes with early access, so I can explore new releases and make content that I hope helps you decide if a pack is worth your money. I think it's important to be transparent with you about my relationship with The Sims and EA, so I do need to share again that I have a creator code where when you use it at checkout on the EA app or thesims.com, I'll receive a small commission from EA whenever you buy EA game titles, including The Sims. As a small creator who is trying to do all of this full time, this is a huge help to me. And if you're using my code to buy Sims 4 packs, it's helpful to you too with that 5% discount. However, based on what I've already said, you may not want to purchase Sims packs or EA titles right now, and that's completely understandable. I'm also going to share a link in the description to a petition on Action Network by Players Alliance, which if you'd like to block this EA deal, you can sign if you're interested. Now, I'm going to step off of my little soapbox and get back to the video, but thank you so much for letting me go on about all of this, because The Sims has become such an important game to me, and I really hope that our values, The Sims values, remain unchanged and that this sale will not go through. Also, you may be wondering if there's some way you might be able to support me if you won't be using my code, which, thank you, I appreciate that. Watching me here on YouTube, on Twitch, or just interacting with my posts on social media is a free way to help boost my content. If you want to take it an extra step and support me financially, you could do so on Twitch or Ko-fi with monthly memberships. That also would unlock access to my personal book club. Not at all necessary, but very much appreciated if you choose to do so. Geez. I'm sorry, I feel like we've barely talked about this build since I've started the video, and there honestly isn't even that much left to it. Again, I'm kind of going back and forth throughout this entire build between that older style and modernism, so it was very cool to find ways to balance that with furniture and decor. I also spent some time adding these sort of lounge spaces to the front of the building on both floors. I think most libraries have areas like this where you can read material while you're physically at the library without needing to check out. Even though the spaces here are more modern, using the more natural tones paired with the fireplaces makes for a real cozy atmosphere. I have anxiety, so I likely would not be found lounging in this space with strangers, but your Sims definitely can. On this upper floor, I placed some computer desks around, as well as another smaller seating area, to give your Sims spots to read or get some studying or writing in. There's a bathroom located on the main floor, kind of in that bump out section off to the side of the librarian's desk. Additionally, there's a space upstairs for a private study room with 2 desks. For the overall look of the library, I went with darker wood tones and those old castle brick walls. In the space next to the stairs on the first floor, I included some small tables for those who might want to stack up the books they plan on borrowing or spend some time looking over a larger book. For the general decor of the space, I leaned more towards wall art like drawings or paintings and photographs of the world of Windenburg. This library feels very much like a cozy, warm old building with some modern charm to it. Back outside, I wanted to play around with making a sort of plaza or pathway, winding around the building itself. This spot of the neighborhood also has a kind of built-in plaza, with spaces around overlooking the water and such. So this specific lot doesn't really need its own outdoor space, but I did want to at least decorate it with more of a defined pathway between the front and the back. Really, the only thing in the back of the actual lot is that kind of tower with the trash can outside. So truly, not much out here for your Sims to do, but I thought it should still look nice visually. Now, I did something a little different from what I normally do and sort of lined that pathway with these sort of manicured planters. I wasn't really sure then if it felt like it was too much or not, and looking at it now, I'm still unsure. What do you think? Part of me thought it would act similarly to fencing, without actually needing to fence in the path. You could still walk off of it onto the grass, make a desire path, if you will. I'm just not sure how I feel about all of those planters. Oh, you might also notice some weird time jumps in this part of the footage, specifically when it comes to this pathing. I don't remember what I did to make this happen or how I could have triggered it, but my terrain paint straight up disappeared at some point. That was fun. Though honestly, it kind of worked in my favor because I think originally I was leaning towards actual flooring for the pathway instead of terrain paint. And I much prefer the terrain paint here now. Almost like we were given the opportunity to perfect the pathway and the terrain paint for the lot as a whole. For landscaping, I decided to add some hedges close to the bump out where the bathroom is for a bit more privacy. I figured that was a nice thing to add since otherwise anyone who's walking along this path could just see right into the bathrooms. I don't even think I added curtains either. I know privacy in this sense isn't really an issue in The Sims, but it most certainly would be in real life, so I had to add in a bit more privacy that way. As for around these hedges, between the building and the path, I created a low wall using fencing to mark off some space for actual flowers and bushes and stuff. I think it came out really pretty. Over on the other side of the building, I used debug fencing to kind of designate more of the private property of the library. So on these grounds, there's some ivy, which also makes its way onto the debug fencing and up the chimney of the library itself. It adds so much character and charm to the library, in my opinion, having all of the ivy incorporated into the building itself. It felt like it was lacking something before I added that in, so I'm really glad that I had that idea. Other than a few trees here and there, some bushes, and outdoor lights decorating the path, that's pretty much the entire build. Let me pop open the game now to give you a short tour. So here we are in the game on the Quad Manor lot, and I literally just had to replace this build from the gallery because the terrain paint was completely different. I don't even know what happened. But anyway, here we are. This is the exterior. We have some greenery over here with the ivy. And then over here, we've got the hedges and some flowers. We've got this tower with a little garbage can back here. But then going down to the first floor, you can see that there is the librarian's desk. There are obviously tons of bookcases and a little lounge over here with a chess table and then the bathrooms over here on the side. Upstairs, however, there's a lot more computer desks, and I'm realizing now that there's not as much space on this side. There is another lounge, and then there's kind of like a private little study room over here in the front. But that, my friends, is the entire build. If you enjoyed this video, please drop me a like and then grab the build off of the gallery. To add it to your game, you can find it using my EA ID, Teknikolour. If you'd like to see more of my builds and other cozy gaming videos, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on future uploads. If you want even more Sims content, consider dropping me a follow over on Twitch. I live stream my pack-based legacy challenge every Thursday, but play other cozy games throughout the week. Planning on picking up Get Together, Crystal Creations, or any other packs? Please use my creator code Teknikolour when checking out on the EA app. It's free for you and supports the channel. Plus, my code can now be used on so many other EA titles, not just The Sims, though that discount only applies for Sims 4 packs. But thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.